Ding Jie. Jiang Yinchi growled in a low voice. Ding Jie ignored him. Jizi looked at Ding Jie. I never expected second uncle to give me any title. To be frank, I knew full well that my relationship with him was not presentable. But what does it matter? I just wanted to pursue that moment of happiness. She then looked at Jiang Yinchi. But I never thought you could be so despicable, trying to cast me aside when I'm no longer useful, not even caring for our temporary affection. Jiang Yinchi coldly shouted. Nonsense. You say you had an affair with me. Do you have any proof? Jizi laughed hysterically. Jiang Yinchi, do you really think I can't produce evidence, so you're acting so recklessly? Jiang Yinchi's face froze. So you have evidence? Old Mrs. Jiang finally spoke. Jizi pulled something small from her pocket. It was clearly a recording device. She said, I was afraid that if something came to light in the future, I would become a scapegoat, so I made full preparations. She pressed a button on the device. It had an external playback function. Ah, be gentle, you annoying person. Gentle? Can gentle satisfy a little hussy like you? But I'm pregnant. Exciting, isn't it? While your husband is asleep, you're having an affair with your husband's second uncle with a big belly. Second uncle, you're so annoying. Did you miss me? Yes, I miss second uncle terribly. With your husband around, you can still miss me? Don't mention Jiang Zhe. Ever since I moved into the Jiang family, he hasn't touched me again. Simply a waste of good things. Am I not already second uncle's? As long as second uncle comes back, doesn't he always bully me? Can't help it. You're too tempting. Second uncle can't resist. Compared to second aunt, how can she be as alluring as you? She's like an ice queen. The scene of the New Year's Eve affair was now presented verbatim through sound. Yunyan felt as if she were there, knowing that these words were spoken that night. Of course, the recording pen contained even more obscene language, coupled with their passionate voices, making it difficult for Jiang Yinchi to deny it this time. Although this cannot serve as legal evidence, everyone can tell whose voices are in it. Jiang Yinchi, if you are unkind, don't blame me for being unjust. Jiang Yinchi's face turned cold with anger. Ding Jie said indifferently. Jiang Yinchi, you've even cheated with a junior. Are you that indiscriminate? Jiang Yinchi pointed at GZ. This slut is slandering me. I'm slandering you? Everyone has ears. GZ sneered, then added. At this point, I have nothing more to say, but even if I leave the Jiang family, I must state that the child in my womb is indeed Jiang Zhe's. Believe it or not. Jiang Zhe's eyes were like a beast's. He suddenly stood up and charged at Jiang Yinchi. I'll kill you, you beast. The scene quickly spiraled out of control. Later, Yunyan found out that if the butler and Jiang Yintai hadn't intervened, Jiang Yinchi would have been strangled to death by Jiang Zhe. Before the scene got out of control, Jiang Yinyan had the butler take old Mrs. Jiang and Yunyan away. It was clear that this confirmation about Jiang Yinchi was a significant blow to old Mrs. Jiang. Although GZ had previously thrown dirt on Jiang Yinyan, the old lady ultimately didn't believe it. She never expected it to be Jiang Yinchi. Yinyan took care of old Mrs. Jiang, while Jiang Yinyan returned to the ancestral hall to clean up the mess. After taking the old lady back to her bedroom with the butler, Yunyan poured water and offered it to her. After a few sips, the old lady slowly recovered, her face still pale, and she was terribly upset. She kept cursing Jiang Yinchi as a wicked son and then asked Yunyan, did third uncle know about GZ and second uncle's affair beforehand? Yunyan's heart skipped a beat, but she calmly raised her eyes, took the teacup from the old lady's hand, and said, such a matter is not presentable to begin with. How could outsiders know? Old Mrs. Jiang gasped for breath, constantly suppressing her anger. What a sin, truly a sin. Yunyan raised her hand and gently rubbed old Mrs. Jiang's chest. Grandma, since things have come to this, let's think of a solution. We can't let this matter escalate. Although she said that, Yunyan still felt a lingering fear. Old Mrs. Jiang, being able to manage such a large family, was certainly not a simple-minded person. She must have witnessed the open and secret struggles among the three Jiang sons. Jiang Yinyan had never treated her like this, not even at the very beginning when he carried clear hatred for the Yu family. Of course, back then, Jiang Yinyan was more focused on tormenting her mentally. He would remain impassive, then force her to take the initiative, force her to submit. Tonight, Jiang Yinyan had transformed into a complete beast, forcing her to submit in the most primal and savage way. Her hands were bound and fixed to the headboard, making her a sacrifice on an altar. Yinyan almost lost her breath when Jiang Yinyan crashed into her. Even when he deliberately softened his movements, Yunyan couldn't bear it, let alone when he was enraged and reckless. Or perhaps deliberately tormenting her. It didn't take long for cold sweat to break out on Yunyan. The man came on aggressively, truly embodying what it meant to vent desire. Yunyan bit her lip fiercely Tears streamed down from the corners of her eyes, but she still refused to make a sound. Seeing this, Jiang Ninian pressed down, his large hand wrapping around the back of her head, controlling her. He chuckled softly. Be good. Just say you don't want to leave, and I won't torment you anymore. Yunyan stared at him, her lips pressed tight, her eyes practically spitting fire. She had no intention of begging him. Jiang Ninian smiled, feigning helplessness. He bit her lip lightly, intermittently, and whispered, I told you, I know your body better than you do yourself. Yunyan shivered. Jiang Ninian kissed her lips. The subsequent movements became slow and deep. Yunyan's breathing suddenly quickened, but her lips were sealed by Jiang Ninian, and the urgent breaths were forced back inside, quickly stirring up huge waves within her. Her body was tense and trembling. Jiang Ninian's movements didn't stop, but his thin lips slid to her ear, sighing seemingly gently, Your body is far more honest than you are. Yunyan was under a form of house arrest. By form of, it meant she could still go out, shopping, eating, etc., but couldn't see friends. Bodyguards followed her when she went out, and guarded the door after she returned home. Sister Bai was still employed. The reason was that she was tight-lipped, handled things clearly, and knew who to be loyal to. So, Sister Bai would truthfully report to Jiang Yinyan what time Yinyan ate at home and what she was doing at any given time. When she went to the sanatorium, the bodyguards wouldn't get too close. Jiang Yinyan had instructed this, but they kept a close eye on who Yunyan met at the sanatorium and for how long. Yunyan's deduction was correct. Previously, Yuanzhou had sent a few bodyguards to the sanatorium for safety reasons, but shortly after, all of them were replaced by Jiang Yinyan's men. No wonder Jiang Yinyan could come and go with such impunity. Later, the sanatorium staff also noticed some clues and, using the excuse that patients might be startled by bodyguards, prevented all bodyguards from staying. Only then did the sanatorium regain its peace. Yuanzhou was enraged when he learned about this, wishing he could force his way into Jiang Yinyan's residence with his men, but Yunyan stopped him. Over the phone, Yunyan told Yuanzhou, he hasn't done anything to me. Right now, the most important thing is for you to stabilize yourself. Yuanzhou's current status was different. He was no longer just the young master of the Yu family. While being acknowledged by the Zhang family had its benefits, there were also so many eyes watching, and he couldn't afford to make even a single mistake. Yuanzhou's initial plan was to inject Zhang family funds into Fangyuan Group to open up the Jiangnan and North China markets. Although this idea had the Zhang family's approval, he would also need to deliver impressive results to the board to ensure long-term, sustained development. Therefore, even if Yuanzhou was anxious, he couldn't act rashly now. Yuanzhou moved quickly. Fang Yuan's key projects had already begun relocating to Jiangnan. It was unclear if it was due to the Zhang family, but Jiang Yinyan did not make things difficult for Yuanzhou during this process. Jiang Yinyan seemed more fixated on whether she would leave or not. As long as he saw her every time he returned, the world seemed to calm down. But Yunyan's idea of leaving had never been dispelled. It could be any time soon, or in half a year at the latest. At Zhongshe Group, Jiang Yinyan announced her leave of absence, citing health reasons. In fact, ever since Jiang Yinyan brought her back from Zhanchuan, he would return almost every night. Even if he was out entertaining late, as long as he was in Beishur, he would come home no matter how late. Then, he would invariably torment her, especially when drunk, his desires becoming even more fervent. As time passed, even Sister Bai noticed something amiss. One day, Sister Bai didn't have much to do, and seeing that Yunyan had no plans to go out, she cautiously struck up a conversation with her. Madam, Sister Bai sighed softly. There are some things I, as an outsider, shouldn't say, but both you and Sir are very good people, and I don't like seeing you two constantly quarreling. How can two people be together without some bumps and scrapes? It doesn't hurt a woman to be a little yielding to a man at the right time. As the old saying goes, a woman who knows how to act cute has the best luck. Yunyan stared at Sister Bai for a long time, making Sister Bai almost break out in a cold sweat. Then heard Yunyan ask, Sister Bai, what did you call me? Madam? After so many days, this was the first time Yunyan heard Sister Bai call her that. Before, they rarely spoke, and Sister Bai always addressed her with the polite you. Sister Bai said, Madam, of course. Yunyan's heart trembled. Sister Bai immediately said, I've called you that in front of Sir, and he didn't say anything, so She left the rest unsaid. But how could Sister Bai not see what was going on? If she'd only worked a day or two, she might not have been clear, but after so many days, the shrewd Sister Bai had figured out what needed to be figured out. These two were not a couple at all. In other words, the woman before her was kept here by the gentleman. To put it less politely, she was a mistress. Of course, Sister Bai didn't know if the man of the house was married. Sister Bai wasn't disparaging. In this day and age, people scorn poverty, not prostitution. Everyone has their own way to survive. But some things are best understood privately and not spoken aloud. What is spoken should naturally be pleasant to hear. For example, the term madam. Yunyan didn't speak, nor did she engage with Sister Bai's previous topic. An hour later, Sister Bai called Jiang Yunyan, reporting, "Sir, madam didn't go out today, but she's been sitting by the window for over an hour." Reading? No, she wasn't reading anything, just spacing out. Late night. The room was intimate. The figures of the man and woman entwined like cicadas. After their intimacy, Yunyan lay sweaty in Jiang Yunyan's arms, her long hair disheveled, her fair skin flushed pink. Her eyes were closed, her face was crimson, and it took a long time for her breathing to calm. Jiang Yunyan wasn't in a hurry to take her to wash. He held her, enjoying her slight tremors. A moment later, he lowered his head, whispering tenderly as his lips lingered, "You're not satisfied with Sister Bai's address for you?" Yunyan opened her eyes. Jiang Yunyan met her gaze, a half-smile on his face. "I heard you've been sitting by the window, spacing out." After a long staring contest, Yunyan said, "Sister Bai is a sharp person. How could she not see what our relationship truly is?" "Madam, that's just giving me face." Her eyes were cold. "You are not my husband, and I'm not your wife." Jiang Yunyan stared at her, the smile on his lips gradually fading. Then, with a pull of his large hand, he flipped her over, so she was facing away from him. Yunyan was already exhausted from his earlier torment and couldn't possibly struggle free. She let him come onto her like a marionette. His imposing body pressed against hers, his thin lips trailing down her back. Yunyan felt a deep weariness, yet she would tremble slightly because of his actions. Jiang Yunyan possessed her again. Not long after he had finished, he came at her aggressively again. Yunyan's cheek was pressed against the bed, one hand clutching the sheet tightly, her lips bitten hard. But the man's deliberate torture quickly made her surrender completely. After an unknown amount of time, Jiang Yunyan leaned in, his warm breath lingering at her ear, his voice hoarse. "Then marry me." Yunyan's heart suddenly leaped with alarm, and she turned her head to look at him. But he thrust into her forcefully. She found it difficult and unbearable, unable to stop herself from crying out. "If we're married, wouldn't that title be legitimate?" Jiang Yunyan's large hand cupped her face, pulling her into his embrace, gazing obsessively at the woman in his arms, fluid as water. Yunyan's heart was in turmoil. "Jiang Yunyan, you're insane?" The last sound fragmented into a gasp with the man's movements. Jiang Yunyan's eyes turned cold. "Insane? Yes, I am. So you think I'd let you be with Zhang Chuan? I told you, I'll never let you go in this lifetime." This thought made his blood boil. The more she struggled, the more he wanted to build a golden cage for her. It didn't matter if she was trapped for a lifetime, and he didn't care how he trapped her. "I don't want to." Yunyan didn't feel this was love from Jiang Yunyan. Instead, it terrified her even more. She grew increasingly afraid of Jiang Yunyan. This madman seemed capable of anything to achieve his goals. In the Jiang family, and in the eyes of outsiders, he was her uncle. Was he truly insane? "Don't want to." Jiang Yunyan scooped her up, pressing her close against his chest, his strong arms encircling her waist. "Then who do you want to marry?" "Zhang Chuan." "Yunyan, don't even think about it in this lifetime." His voice turned cold. Yunyan's "I don't want to" made him completely lose his reason. He brutally gripped her waist, wishing he could strangle her. "Yunyan, remember this. What I can't have, he won't get either." Yunyan grew paler day by day. Her appetite was poor. Many times, Sister Bai would take the food away just as she had brought it. Would one call it an unhappy parting? But in reality, Yunyan felt that her relationship with Jiang Yunyan had deteriorated to a point where happiness was out of the question. She didn't know why Jiang Yunyan suddenly mentioned marriage that night, only that he hadn't returned since then. Then, one day, Jiang Yunyan returned. In bed, Yunyan was almost numb, and Jiang Yunyan had become a mere emotional release. Finally, he said coldly into her ear, "You're so disgusted by our relationship, aren't you? Fine, then let's waste a lifetime like this." Her reaction, like a dead fish, completely enraged Jiang Yunyan. She took a long time to recover after that night. Until one day, Sister Bai's gaze at her felt inexplicably wrong. Only after being pressed did Sister Bai signal her to check online. That one look was enough. Yunyan's scalp immediately tingled with dread. The public outcry came with immense force. The Zhang family had frequently made headlines due to the broken engagement and the MO law incident. They had finally managed to suppress the buzz, which had already caused stock market volatility. Now, another earth-shattering bombshell had erupted, implicating not only the Zhang family, but also the Zhongshe group. The internet exploded. Young Master Yen of the capital, his low profile and mystery already piqued curiosity. Even during the previous MO law incident, no photos of Jiang Yunyan had been exposed. Now, with this event coming to light, photos of Jiang Yunyan were quickly circulated across the entire network. It was impossible for the photos to be perfectly clear, as they were candid shots, Yet these few pictures of him entering and leaving a hotel were enough to send the entire internet into a frenzy. His height and facial features were still discernible, and consequently, the entire internet was almost unanimously captivated by young Master Yan's looks. The vast majority of netizens were smitten, remarking that the men of the Jiang family were indeed exceptionally handsome, especially young Master Yan. Even with unclear photos, his godlike appearance was evident, not to mention his absolutely advantageous height. But after a burst of fervent admiration, the main gossip content was brought to the forefront. The illicit relationship between uncle and niece became a hot topic of discussion. Just having this label pinned on them had a huge impact. If it were an ordinary family, it might be tolerable, as there was no blood relation, and it couldn't truly be called immoral. But in a prominent family like the Jiangs, it was unacceptable. The more distinguished the family, the more they valued their reputation. Yun Yin herself, as the once prominent darling of the Yu family, was already a subject of much discussion. This time, young Master Yin of the capital was added to the mix. Although Yun Yin was a granddaughter acknowledged by old Mrs. Jiang, this acknowledgement wasn't a casual declaration. It had been publicly announced and celebrated with a banquet. Fundamentally, she was no different from a member of the Jiang family. Since she was the Jiang family's granddaughter, she was young Master Yin of the capital's niece. Regardless of blood relation, the uncle-niece relationship was fixed, so the explosion of this news had a far greater impact than MOLA's remarriage to someone else. More importantly, a new narrative began to emerge online, claiming that the relationship between the Yu family's young Miss and young Master Yin had started even before the broken engagement. In other words, young Master Yin had taken an interest in her even before she was acknowledged as a Jiang family granddaughter. At that time, she was his nephew's fiancée, and, as young Master Yin's nephew's fiancée, Yun Yin not only failed to uphold feminine virtues but also got involved with her fiancé's uncle. There were all sorts of claims online. In short, it was an earth-shattering scandal, comparable to the top gossip of an A-list celebrity. Yun Yin, with foresight, turned off her phone, not giving anyone a chance to bother her. Landing on trending topics wasn't new to her. Yun Yin had gained some experience. Needless to say, the stock prices of Jiang Corporation and Zhongshe Group began to be affected, and within a few hours, more dirt diggers emerged. Insiders revealed that the Yu family's young miss worked at Zhongshe, having been parachuted in as the CEO's special assistant. Not only that, but Yu family's existing Fanyuan company also benefited, with the Nanzhou project indirectly gaining a share of the profits. Netizens drew a conclusion: a tender trap, a hero's doom. Even someone as ascetic and unemotional as young Master Yin could be seduced and personally hand over his empire. This Yu family's young miss truly possessed cunning methods. There were all sorts of comments. In short, gossip could kill. Yun Yin knew that even with her phone off, the calm would only be temporary. This storm was too fierce to pass so easily. If it only involved her personally, she wouldn't care. Accustomed to Jiang Yinyan's cruel words, she didn't find the netizens' comments particularly malicious. What she worried about was Fanyuan. The Zhan family's endorsement was a double-edged sword for Yuan Zhou. While it certainly expanded investment and connections, it also meant Yuan Zhou couldn't afford a single misstep. So, if Fanyuan's project was affected, the Zhan family would undoubtedly cut ties with Fanyuan to protect themselves. Yun Yin thought that this news was very unfavorable for Jiang Yinyan. Not to mention how Jiang Corporation shareholders would criticize him verbally. Even Zhongshe would be in a bind. At least he wouldn't be back tonight. Yun Yin stood by the window for a long time, wondering who would profit from such an expose. 9 times out of 10, it was a business rival. The Nanzhou project was too big, and Jiang Yinyan's current momentum was fierce. Even with his usual low profile, he must have stepped on many people's toes. Yun Yin's strongest suspicion fell upon members of the Jiang family. Both Jiang Yintai and Jiang Yinshi were major suspects. It wasn't impossible that they would harm an enemy 1,000 while incurring 800 damage themselves. Sister Bai had prepared the meal and cautiously called Yun Yin to eat. Yun Yin glanced at the time and asked Sister Bai to go home first. Sister Bai didn't live in. This was Yun Yin's final insistence, and Jiang Yinyan hadn't forced the issue. Seeing her solemn expression, Sister Bai nodded. Yun Yin instructed Sister Bai, if you notice anyone following you, have the bodyguards take a few extra detours. No matter who tries to pump you for information, don't say anything. Sister Bai repeatedly said, don't worry. After Sister Bai left, the entire house became exceptionally quiet, a stark contrast to the bustling and chaotic online environment. Yun Yin looked at the time on the wall, thinking of calling Yuan Zhou a bit later. With something like this happening, both he and Xiao Min would surely be worried. Just as she was thinking, Jiang Yinyan actually returned. The night was deep, and Jiang Yinyan simply returned. Although he looked weary, he didn't appear agitated by the scandal. Seeing she hadn't eaten, Jiang Yinyan frowned. Why haven't you touched your food? Yunyan couldn't gauge his current mood and tried not to provoke him, so she quietly went into the dining room to eat. Soon after, Jiang Yinyan also came in. He had changed into dark loungewear, which made his features appear even more severe. This man's wardrobe was dominated by dark colors, mainly black and gray, and even his ties weren't overly vibrant. Reserved, cold, and not to be trifled with. He had come in to dine. There was only one set of tableware on the table, so Jiang Yinyan fetched another set, served himself some rice, and sat opposite Yunyan. Yunyan was slightly stunned. She hadn't expected him to have not eaten yet. Just like that, the two ate facing each other. The dining table was very quiet. Normally, Jiang Yinyan ate in silence. Yunyan, on the other hand, would be more talkative if she indulged outside, depending on the environment. In the current atmosphere, she just wanted to finish eating as quickly as possible. She didn't eat much, skipping the main course. Just as she was about to put down her chopsticks, she heard Jiang Yinyan ask, "Don't you like Sister Bai's cooking?" Yunyan froze. Today, both she and he had been in a state of high tension, so a quiet conversation like this was rare. Seeing her silent, Jiang Yinyan added, "Then I'll have a chef from the Jiang family come over." "No need. I'm just not very hungry," Yunyan said. "Sit down." Jiang Yinyan didn't let her get up, commanding lightly, "I haven't finished eating." Yunyan didn't want to provoke him, so she complied. Jiang Yinyan scooped a bowl of soup and offered it to her. "Drink." Yunyan also complied. While drinking the soup, she secretly observed Jiang Yinyan's expression. The protagonist of the day-long scandal was now sitting opposite her, eating. His expression was calm and unruffled, as if he weren't the one embroiled in the scandal. Yunyan was very suspicious. Was he really so emotionally stable? After a long while, she asked, "The online expose. Do you know who it was?" Jiang Yinyan took a sip of soup and casually retorted, "Does it matter?" Yunyan choked a bit. "Doesn't it matter?" The conversation seemed to die there. Yet, Jiang Yinyan asked again, "Are you worried?" "What kind of question was that?" Yunyan lowered her gaze. "I'm involved, so it's normal to be worried, isn't it? Who are you worried for? Yourself? Zhan Chuan? Or—" He paused, not uttering the final word, "me." He found it amusing. How could he possibly think she would be worried about him? Yunyan's chest tightened. She put down her spoon. "I'm full. Please take your time." This time, Jiang Yinyan didn't stop her from getting up and leaving. After returning to the bedroom, Yunyan wasn't in the mood to do anything else. As she was washing up in the bathroom, she kept thinking about Jiang Yinyan's reaction. Why was it as if nothing had happened? The more she thought, the more something fell off. After washing up, Yunyan turned on her phone. The moment she turned it on, a flood of messages came pouring in like water. From everyone, many unknown numbers were adding her on WeChat. Yunyan truly got a taste of these people's omnipresence. Xiaomin's voice message was direct. "Yinyan, what does Jiang Yinyan's public statement mean? Is he crazy? What exactly is going on between you two now?" A string of questions. Yunyan was startled. A public statement? What kind of statement? Ignoring the need to reply, Yunyan quickly opened a web page to see. She didn't even need to search. It was blatantly displayed on the trending topics. The search term had exploded, a blazing hot purplish red. Search term, "What fault is there?" Yunyan vaguely felt a bad omen, her fingers trembling as she clicked. Faced with the raging public opinion, Jiang Yinyan actually made a public statement, succinct and to the point. The man is unmarried. The woman is unmarried. How is this improper involvement? No blood relations, but an existing acquaintance. What fault is there? It exploded. When Yunyan saw Jiang Yinyan's exact words in his public statement, her mind buzzed, and her eyes nearly blacked out, almost making her faint. Every sentence seemed to be distancing their relationship, yet every sentence indicated they had a relationship. Especially the phrase, "no blood relations, but an existing acquaintance," which was said with profound meaning. It was also being analyzed with relish across the entire internet. No blood relations, but an existing acquaintance. No blood relations. No blood ties, not family. Existing acquaintance. An old connection, not strangers. Jiang Yinyan gave two replies. "The man is unmarried. The woman is unmarried," was clearly a response to the online claims that he coveted his nephew's fiancée. No blood relations, but an existing acquaintance targeted the so-called uncle-niece relationship. When Jiang Yinyan entered the bedroom, he had already showered. His hair wasn't blow-dried. The semi-dry hair made him seem rather boy next door. Seeing Yunyan standing blankly by the bed, he asked nonchalantly, "What's wrong?" Yunyan clutched her phone, her breathing tight. She looked at him and asked, "The thing online, you responded?" Jiang Yinyan hummed an affirmation and got into bed. Yunyan's heart pounded like thunder. She walked forward and asked him why. Jiang Yinyan lifted his face to look at her, his large hand covering her slender waist, kneading it as if playfully, and smiled faintly. Why is your reaction so strong? Yunyan gestured towards her phone. The entire internet has exploded now. Do you still think my reaction is strong? Jiang Yinyan's tone was light. Did I respond incorrectly? Yunyan's breathing grew tighter and tighter. She looked at him for a long time. Jiang Yinyan, do you know what you're doing? He's crazy. Jiang's board of directors personally summoned Jiang Yinyan. Compared to actively facing Zhongshe Group's board, Jiang's appearance seemed less than sincere. At least, it kept a roomful of directors waiting for nearly an hour, and upon entering, he merely offered a casual explanation. Sorry, I was in a meeting. Jiang Yintai sat in the chairman's seat, naturally looking displeased. As a member of the Jiang family, Jiang Yinyan held shares in Jiang's, though not a large amount, and had no real management power. Thus, he had since started his own venture, and generally didn't get involved in Jiang's affairs, rarely even attending board meetings. This time, it was specifically about the online public opinion. Jiang's clearly wanted Jiang Yinyan to state his position. The matter originated with him, and it couldn't be allowed to affect the entire operations of Jiang's. Jiang Yinyan sneered. Usually, they didn't treat him as family, but now they remembered he was a Jiang. He said faintly, got it. Just these 3 words. Then came the next 2 responses, seemingly brief, but actually profound. In truth, Yunyan hadn't expected a deeply heartfelt answer from him, but hearing Jiang Yinyan's words still startled her. A faint, unusual sensation arose in her heart, but she dared not delve too deeply. Jiang Yinyan was a man who planned every step meticulously. She couldn't quite figure out his thoughts. Seeing her silence, Jiang Yinyan frowned instead. Why aren't you speaking? Or do you think I've ruined your plans? I don't understand what you're saying. Yunyan's waist was throbbing from the tight grip of his large hand. Jiang Yinyan, however, pulled her into his embrace, staring at her face as he said, Yunyan, everyone knows your mind now, so get rid of any thoughts of leaving me. Yunyan looked at him, her eyes holding a strange expression. What do you want to say? Jiang Yinyan was displeased. Her gaze made him very uncomfortable. Jiang Yinyan, if I didn't know this could affect Zhongshe and the Jiang family, I would definitely think you orchestrated this whole thing yourself, Yunyan said. Jiang Yinyan met her gaze, then suddenly smiled. What if it was me? Unless you don't care about the Jiang family. Or Zhongshe, Yunyan said. The smile in Jiang Yinyan's eyes grew more pronounced, a mocking sneer, but to Yunyan, it held a touch of sadness. She heard him say, care about what? Family affection? For someone like me who never knew what family affection was since childhood, that stuff is worthless. Care about profit? Everything I have, I earn myself. What I can lose, I can also regain. Yunyan looked at him for a long time, then said, you're not that kind of person. What? Jiang Yinyan slightly furrowed his brow, looking at her. Yunyan took a deep breath and softly said, you're a smart person. If you really wanted to take this step, you wouldn't use a tactic that harms 1,000 enemies while hurting yourself 800. You say you don't care about profit, but ultimately, you're a businessman, and pursuing profit is a merchant's nature. Of course, perhaps you truly don't care, but you care about your employees. You might abandon Zhongshe, but you wouldn't let down those who struggled with you, those who rely on you to support their families. If Yunyan hadn't worked at Zhongshe, she would have absolutely been fooled by Jiang Yinyan's recent words. But she had indeed witnessed certain things at Zhongshe. To the outside world, young Master Yin was mysterious. To Zhongshe, President Jiang was rarely seen. But this didn't mean Zhongshe needed him to be constantly present. Even when Jiang Yinyan wasn't in the company, everything at Zhongshe operated remarkably smoothly. Later, Yunyan learned that at Zhongshe, there was no nepotism. Only capability spoke, and whoever had the talent had the opportunity for promotion. At Zhongshe, there wasn't as much complex social maneuvering. Everyone's goals were quite straightforward, and the workplace culture wasn't as complicated. And those who reached middle to senior management positions at Zhongshe were all talents personally selected by Jiang Yinyan. They were fiercely loyal to him. Of course, there were also longtime employees like Yang Li at Zhongshe, who brought their own network of resources. There were quite a few such people at Zhongshe. Initially, Yang Li was among those who didn't submit to Jiang Yinyan, but later Yang Li also capitulated, naturally becoming thoroughly convinced and impressed by Jiang Yinyan. She remembered asking Bai Li, did Yang Li really get controlled by Jiang Yinyan just because of you? Bai Li laughed and said, how could that be? If Yang Li truly wanted to leave, no one could stop him. But whether Yang Li stayed or left, one thing was certain. Jiang Yinyan wouldn't retaliate like other company executives. If Yang Li stayed, he was sure to be highly valued by Jiang Yinyan. If Yang Li left, he could also be sure that Jiang Yinyan wouldn't blacklist him or make things difficult for Bai Li. Other similar individuals in the company were puzzled when they learned Yang Li had chosen to follow Jiang Yinyan. Yang Li told them. We thought we could control Jiang Yinyan with our resources, but in reality, he could completely kick us out of Zhongshu and block our paths externally. Why do you think he didn't do that? Yang Li's words, in fact, indirectly reflected Jiang Yinyan's magnanimity and his valuing of company members. Yunyan thought to herself, all his patience and tolerance were actually given to Zhongshu. So how could he claim not to care and truly not care? Also, you said family affection is worthless to you. So why do you remember Grandma's birthday more clearly than anyone else? And are you really afraid of Jiang Xian? Every time Jiang Xian controls you, scolds you, don't you actually savor it? Yunyan retorted, question after question. No sooner had she finished speaking than Jiang Yinyan dragged her onto the bed, flipping her over and pinning her down. He lowered his head and bit her lip, his tone displeased. Don't call her Grandma. With that, he furiously kissed her lips, as if afraid to hear her say anything more. That night, Jiang Yinyan seemed tireless on her, releasing his frustrations again and again. While the previous brutality and ruthlessness were gone, his lingering, obsessive entanglement was even more terrifying. She utterly dreaded such intimacy, for in the end, she would always be slowly pushed to the point of losing her sanity. She lost herself repeatedly under his seductive spell. That night, no one brought up the public opinion issue again, because Jiang Yinyan had focused all his energy on her. Yinyan finally fell into a deep sleep in his arms as dawn approached. The public opinion wouldn't fade just because they avoided discussing it, as Jiang Yinyan's responses would only generate more buzz. But Yunyan adopted an ostrich mentality, avoid it if she could. After last night, she found Jiang Yinyan's attitude had softened. At least there was no tension. She thought that no matter how intense the public opinion, it would eventually fade with time. But this thought hadn't even warmed up before even bigger waves were stirred up the next day. This time, the person who publicly stated his position on the public opinion was actually Zhan Chuan, and his statements were quite bold. Zhan Chuan publicly declared that his girlfriend was the eldest daughter of the Yu family, and if all went well, they would be engaged on a chosen day. Furthermore, he also explained the meaning of Jiang Yinyan's previous remarks in public, stating that he, Miss Yu, and Jiang Yinyan were actually old acquaintances with a very good relationship. He had liked Yunyan for a long time, and now it was like getting the moon near the water tower, a metaphor for having an advantage due to proximity. As for the photos exposed online, Zhan Chuan stated, is there a problem with an uncle and nephew staying in the same hotel? Since they can stay in the same hotel, what's so strange about being photographed entering and exiting together? The internet exploded even more. It was as if a nuclear weapon had been dropped. Netizens went wild with speculation. So this was the truth. The saying, unmarried man, unmarried woman, actually referred to Yunyan and Zhan Chuan, and not related by blood, but acquainted referred to the friendship among the three of them. Of course, there were also disbelievers, leading to a chaotic stew of various arguments. From the perspective of handling the situation, Zhan Chuan's public statement was very reasonable. Firstly, it could extricate Jiang Yinyan from this matter, protecting Zhang's and mitigating the greater impact that Jiang Yinyan's response would have later. Secondly, it rectified Yunyan's position, showing that she wasn't having an affair with her uncle, nor was she a promiscuous woman, but rather a proper young woman in a relationship. Her partner was the eldest young master of the Zhan family, and also a promising young prosecutor. When someone with such dual identities made a statement, it carried significant weight, a move that achieved three things at once. The last gain was in Zhan Chuan himself. Yunyan was utterly stunned when she saw the news online, and, as the person directly involved, she was actually slow to realize what was happening. At that time, Jiang Yinyan was showering. Xiaomin called and told Yunyan, if you say Prosecutor Zhan's move had no intention towards you, I wouldn't believe it. He didn't need to offend Jiang Yinyan and take this risk. Did he really never confess to you back in school? Yunyan wanted to cry, but had no tears. The direction of everything had changed too quickly in the past day or two, so fast that she couldn't recover. She explicitly stated that Zhan Chuan had never confessed his love to her in school. Back then, it was just her unrequited affection, deeply hidden in her heart and never dared to be revealed. Usually, Jiang Yinyan didn't shower for too long, but this morning Yunyan waited for a considerable time and still didn't see him come out. It wasn't until he called her into the walk-in closet that she knew he had seen the online news just by looking at his expression. From last night until waking up this morning, his gaze had been relatively gentle. While helping him with his shirt and suit, Jiang Yinyan didn't speak, but Yunyan knew he was constantly watching her. It wasn't until she was tying his tie that he suddenly pulled her into his embrace, clutching her waist. Very happy, aren't you? No wonder you were so well-behaved last night. Yunyan was pressed against the mirror by him, unable to move. She looked up and said, I didn't know Zhan Chuan would do this. Do you think I believe that? Jiang Yinyan's large hand moved to the back of her neck, lifting her head. His eyes held a storm of fury. Yunyan, you're quite bold, silently putting on such a big show with Zhang Chuan. Yunyan was astonished. I didn't. Immediately, Jiang Yunyan bit her lips savagely, causing tears to well up from the pain. When he finally released her, her lips were broken, blood seeping out. He clutched her, his eyes as fierce as a wolf's, with a hint of self-mockery. Yunyan, how should I describe you? It seems you really can sacrifice yourself to achieve your goals. Last night's wanton behavior had a reason, didn't it? I even thought you genuinely understood him so well. Yunyan's breathing was painful, and her lips hurt. Jiang Yunyan's large hand moved to her neck, gradually tightening. She suddenly choked, struggling to catch her breath. Was he going to strangle her? Yunyan struggled weakly, instinctively reaching for his tie, but failed to grasp it. Just as her mind grew hazy and white shadows appeared before her eyes, Jiang Yunyan suddenly released her again. As she gasped for air, he lowered his head and savagely kissed her lips, kissing her like a madman. Zhang Chuan, by his own efforts, had elevated online public opinion to a new height. Yunyan called Zhang Chuan, who had long anticipated her call. He softly told her, Yin, if you want to leave Jiang Yunyan, now is the best time. No matter how crazy Jiang Yunyan gets, old Mrs. Jiang is still above him, keeping him in check. She can't let him act too wantonly and will surely find a way to salvage the Jiang family's reputation. Unless, Zhang Chuan paused, then added, you don't want to leave Jiang Yunyan. She definitely had to leave, but if it meant stepping on others to free herself, she absolutely couldn't do it. She said, Senior Zhang, this is between Jiang Yunyan and me. You don't have to risk yourself for me. Zhang Chuan was silent for a moment, then said, if I say it's worth it, then it's worth it. Yuan Zhou shared Zhang Chuan's view, thinking this was a rare opportunity. Whatever you do, don't make a public statement to distance yourself, or you and Jiang Yunyan will be back to square one. Zhang Chuan's approach was to act first and report later, but it's undoubtedly the most effective. The Jiang family will have to make a public statement eventually. This matter was difficult to handle, but even more troubling were the words Jiang Yunyan had dropped this morning. So she didn't know what he was capable of, only vaguely sensing it was out of the ordinary. A public statement would be useless. Yuan Zhou was right. Once she made a statement, it would only put the whole situation at the center of public attention. At the same time, it would take her relationship with Jiang Yunyan back to square one, trapping her in a hopeless situation again. At this point, perhaps the breakthrough lay with old Mrs. Jiang. Yunyan reminded Yuan Zhou and also asked him to remind Zhang Chuan to be careful of Jiang Yunyan, especially Zhang Chuan. Bodyguards still stood guard at the door. It was unlikely for Yunyan to go to the Jiang family's old mansion, and asking Jiang Yunyan for permission was even more out of the question. Just as Yunyan was considering whether to find an excuse to invite old Mrs. Jiang out, old Lu unexpectedly arrived. He said, I'm here to pick up Miss, and take her back to the old mansion. Old Lu hadn't appeared for several days. Today, he was alone in the car. Jiang Yunyan wasn't with him. On the way, Yunyan asked old Lu, why are we going to the old mansion? Although going to the old mansion was something she was happy to see, the coincidence made her suspicious. Old Lu said he didn't know. He was just following orders to pick someone up. Master Yin asked me to pick you up. Where is Jiang Yunyan? He should be arriving at the old mansion soon. Yunyan felt uncertain. Who called everyone back to the old mansion? Old Lu gave her a definite answer. It's old madam. She probably has something important to tell everyone. Yunyan's uneasy heart settled slightly. She was silent for a moment, then said, Old Lu, why haven't I seen you these past few days? Old Lu steadily gripped the steering wheel. I was handling some matters for Master Yin. What matters? Yunyan asked reflexively. Seeing Old Lu glance in the rearview mirror, Yunyan realized her reaction was a bit strong. She tried to rein in her emotions and said, I suppose you know about everything that's happened these days, and those bodyguards at the door are not even a fraction as capable as you. This time, Old Lu was taking her, and the bodyguards weren't following, indicating Old Lu indeed had a degree of authority. Old Lu said, those people are rather, he paused, seemingly considering the appropriate adjective, then continued, quite rigid, understandably. They're afraid of making mistakes. Perhaps it's professional habit. They dare not make the slightest error, so their way of doing things is indeed unappealing. Where are they from? Yunyan asked, feigning nonchalance. But who was Old Lu? Someone who could work alongside Jiang Yunyan wouldn't be simple. He glanced in the rearview mirror, his tone light yet distant. Miss you, it's better not to ask. Knowing too much will only add to your troubles. Yunyan chose to remain silent. Although Old Lu didn't give her the answer she wanted, he had indirectly told her that those people were not simple. At the very least, they weren't ordinary bodyguards. The car fell silent. Old Lu subtly glanced in the rearview mirror again, thought for a moment, and put on some music. It was a tune Yunyan liked. It was very fitting for the moment, soothing her soul and alleviating her uneasy emotions. Yunyan looked out the window. A large expanse of sunset dyed the sky red, like a vast sea of fire burning the heavens. Red sky at night, a long journey to follow. Tomorrow would be another clear day. But even with such a beautiful sky, Yunyan felt terribly suppressed. She didn't know when this knot in her heart would untie, just like her current turbulent mood. How many times had she tried to break free, only to fall back into a cage from which she couldn't escape? Yes, nothing could go back to square one. Yunyan felt that if this situation continued, she would go crazy. The setup at the old mansion was quite grand. This indeed exceeded Yunyan's expectations. Besides the children of the Jiang family's main branch, there were also the Jiang family elders. Jiang Zhe and Jizi hadn't come, but Jiang Yinchi had. Although he still wasn't allowed to participate in group affairs, he didn't look as decadent as she'd imagined. He simply didn't interact with anyone, just sat there fiddling with his phone. Jiang Yintai was dissatisfied with Jiang Yinchi, but with so many elders present, as the eldest son, he naturally restrained himself a bit. But Tang Hui was not very considerate. As soon as Yunyan entered the courtyard, she could hear Tang Hui's resentful grumbling. Now it's basically just me and that little slut staying at home. The moment I see her, my head hurts. That scoundrel Jiang Zhe never comes home, carousing outside every day. I'm worried to death. That shameless little slut flirts around. I won't let her have an easy time. I won't let her family visit. I'll infuriate her. I told her what kind of person, what kind of fate. You had a good path to gain status through your child, but you didn't take it. Instead, you couldn't stand loneliness and grew ambitious, ruining your own fate as a rich madam. Who's to blame? Blame your blindness, mistaking a scoundrel for a lover. She even scolded Jiang Yinchi along with them. Seeing Yunyan arrive, Jiang Xian finally had an excuse not to listen to Tang Hui's Xianglin Saw-like complaints. She hurried forward, pulling Yunyan's hand in surprise. Why are your hands so cold? She looked at old Lu. Are we so poor the car can't afford gas? Unwilling to turn on the air conditioning. Jiang Xian's words were always sharp, but old Lu was familiar with her temperament. He smiled and said, yes, I'll be more careful next time. Yunyan softly said the air conditioning in the car was sufficient. It's just getting dark so my hands get cold. Quickly come inside and warm up. Although it's spring now, there's still a late spring cold snap. Old Mrs. Jiang was discussing matters with several elders, not in the main hall. After Jiang Xian pulled Yunyan in, she brought up the online public opinion. Second, Madame Ding Jia hadn't come because she was divorced. Tang Hui, having lost her conversation partner, had been complaining to Jiang Xian. Now, finding herself alone again, her ears perked up at Jiang Xian mentioning the online matter, and she edged closer. Jiang Xian and Yunyan had nothing in common to talk about with Tang Hui, but they couldn't very well drive her away, so they had to put up with it. Jiang Xian said to Yunyan, those people online are truly keyboard warriors. Don't pay them any mind. Let them say whatever they want. She sighed. You're such a good girl. Why do you have to suffer all this? With Tang Hui there, Yunyan found it inconvenient to say much, so she merely said lightly, it's fine. I don't go online anyway. Things will eventually pass, right? As a result, Tang Hui started chattering away. This third child of ours is also thoughtless in his actions. Either don't respond at all, or speak properly. Since everyone knows you're dating young Master Zhan, just announce it publicly to avoid misunderstandings. Zhan Chuan and I are not dating. Yunyan didn't want Tang Hui talking nonsense and clarified promptly. Hearing this, Jiang Xian quietly asked her, you're really not dating? Really not. You really are dating, then? Tang Hui, in a loud voice, interrupted Yunyan's words. She even sat down beside her, smiling, and said, we're all family, so there's no need to hide things. He's made a public declaration. That kind of affection isn't something all men have. There are many men in this world who dare to do something but not take responsibility for it. As she said this, she snorted coldly. Anyone with eyes could tell who she was being sarcastic about. Sister-in-law, Nian has already explained, so it's better not to spread these words around. Jiang Xian slightly furrowed her brow. However, Tang Hui was typically shrewd on the outside, but incredibly foolish on the inside. She pulled Yunyan's hand and laughed. I understand. After all, you're not engaged yet, so some things should be kept secret. If you ask me, young Master Zhan is a talented and handsome young man with a good family background. Although he can't compare to our Jiang family, he can still be considered a good match. I also heard you two went to the same school. That's truly fate. If you ask me, senior and junior classmates are the most compatible. As the last sentence fell, Jiang Nian entered the room. Yunyan suddenly felt a chill down her spine. Tang Hui saw Jiang Nian arrive and was about to greet him, but she felt the coldness in his gaze toward her and couldn't help but shiver. unable to utter a single word. Jiang Yinyan slowly stepped forward, standing beside Yun Yan, but actually facing Tang Hui. His tone was cold. Sister-in-law, do you usually speak so little at home? This meeting, however, finds you unusually talkative. Tang Hui was mostly unwilling to provoke Jiang Yinyan, but after hearing his words today, she was displeased. No matter what, she was his elder sister-in-law. I'm just concerned about Nian Yan. Whether it's concern or gossip, sister-in-law knows it in her heart, Jiang Yinyan said indifferently. With this idle time, sister-in-law should focus on your own family's affairs. What if your own backyard catches fire again? I could hear your clamoring before even entering the room. How unseemly. It was old Mrs. Jiang who entered, followed by several elders. With old madam's appearance, the entire old mansion became serious. Seeing Yun Yan, old madam was quite happy. She deliberately pulled her to sit beside her, patting her hand. You've really been wrong these past 2 days, child. Yun Yan's heart skipped a beat. Old madam knew about the online matter. That's right. Even if old madam usually paid no attention to outside affairs, she couldn't stop others from informing her. It turned out to be a family meeting convened for a marriage alliance, with several elders present as witnesses. It was actually about Jiang Yinyan's marriage, and the other party was naturally a young lady from a well-matched family. Old madam said, I've met the Chung family's daughter. She's very good. Nian Yan, since you and Mola are not fated to be together, consider a girl from another family. Yun Yan listened in throughout, keeping her gaze lowered. Yet a faint, lingering ache bloomed in her heart, an indescribable, suffocating feeling. Jiang Yinyan spoke with calm indifference, completely unconcerned about the explosive consequences his words might unleash. Yun Yan was stunned. It was as if her breath caught in her throat. Her mind buzzed first, then went completely blank. The elders' faces were astonished, and even old Madame Jiang, a woman who had always been emotionally stable and weathered many storms in her life, changed her expression upon hearing those words. The others, needless to say, were all utterly taken aback. One of the elders spoke, clearly suppressing his emotions. Yun Yan is a junior. Ultimately, she must have her own life. As her uncle, you should either pave the way for the younger generation or let them grow freely. This is a principle you surely understand. Another elder promptly followed. First the Mora family matter, and now this situation concerning the younger generation. The Jiang family cannot remain silent without repercussions. Nian Yan, it's true you've been away since childhood, but now that you've returned to the Jiang family, you should uphold its honor and reputation. Just a few days ago, your mother mentioned you to the elders and brought up Zhongshe. You are a bloodline of the Jiang family's main branch. You can't possibly not return to the group. You wouldn't be ignorant of this principle. One after another, the elders immediately stated their positions. Everyone present understood the implication. No one was a fool. Regardless of Jiang Yinyan's purpose in saying those words, even if he had an agenda, the elders' thoughts were unified to nip Jiang Yinyan's true intentions in the bud. First, they emphatically reinforced Jiang Yinyan and Yun Yan's uncle-niece relationship, clearly telling everyone present that this ethical bond could not be changed. Not now. Not ever. Second, they subtly hinted to Jiang Yinyan that as a member of the Jiang family's main branch, whatever he pursued outside was not the right path. His roots were with the Jiang family and the corporation, and the Jiang elders were already considering his return to the group. How could Yun Yan not understand? She dared not deeply ponder Jiang Yinyan's audacious words or their purpose. But in truth, she didn't want to ponder them deeply, for fear that doing so would plunge her into a boundless abyss. Furthermore, her presence today was entirely about seizing the opportunity to counterattack. With the elders all present, a rare occurrence, she had intended to capitalize on their uncle-niece relationship to completely sever ties with Jiang Yinyan. She had planned it exceptionally well, and thinking this way was very rational. A voice even echoed in her heart, urging her, say it quickly, seize this chance to agree with the elders, and you'll be one step closer to success. Your goal will very likely be achieved. But Yun Yan couldn't bring herself to say it. What she was unwilling to admit, what she refused to admit, was that when she heard Jiang Yinyan say he had enough with just her, although her mind was a blank, flowers of joy bloomed in her heart, and threads of tendrils finally pried open the tiles above, beginning to grow wildly. Yun Yan hated this feeling. Is that so? Jiang Yinyan chuckled upon hearing the elders' words. Since when have I become so important in the eyes of all you elders? You, third son. Old Madame Jiang promptly stabilized the collapsing situation, her tone steady. I know you have a rebellious nature and don't take kindly to elders' discipline. It's not a big deal if you go too far yourself, but don't drag Ninian into it. The uncle-niece bond is a matter of fate. You must acknowledge it whether you like it or not. Besides, what would young Master Jean think if he heard those crazy words you just said? After all, they're the real couple. At this, the old madam pulled Yunyan's hand and gently patted it twice. Young Master Jean is a good match. A woman, you see, mainly needs to find someone who will treat her well. I observe that young man from the Jean family is a considerate one. If you two were truly together, Grandma would be at ease. Jiang Yinyan looked at Yunyan, his face serene, his eyes holding an unfathomable depth. At this moment, Yunyan also understood the old madam's true meaning. On the surface, each sentence seemed innocuous, but every one of them held a hidden meaning. To say Jiang Yinyan was rebellious and undisciplined was, in fact, an insinuation that his actions and words were merely a defiance against the Jiang elders, all but explicitly stating he was acting out because he didn't want a marriage alliance. Of course, any discerning person knew this was old Madame Jiang's pretense. Jiang Yinyan was a grown man. How could he act without considering the consequences? Old Madame Jiang's stance was more a result of being put on the spot by the clan elders. At this point, Yunyan only needed to go along with old Madame Jiang's words. If she acknowledged her relationship with Zhan Chuan, she could completely free herself from Jiang Yinyan. Just one step was left. Yet, at this moment, Yunyan found herself unwilling. A torrent of complex emotions churned within her, her mind flashing red alerts, urging her to speak rationally, but what she uttered was, Zhan Chuan and I. Before Yunyan could finish the self-destructive, Zhan Chuan and I are not a couple that had barely escaped her lips, a clear, crisp voice drifted in from outside. The person hadn't even stepped in the main hall before her voice rose. Joyful, pleasant, imbued with youthful vigor. Yunyan's heart gave a jolt, and the rest of her sentence was blocked. Jiang Yinyan frowned slightly and instinctively looked back. Several doors of the main hall were open. The weather was warming, and a breath of spring drifted into the room, including the girl who entered. How to describe her? She was like a girl stepping out of a painting, brimming with youthful vitality, her posture elegant, her long hair, draped over her shoulders, seemingly dyed with the colors of sunset, shimmering with luster. Dressed in exquisite haute couture, though smiling, she immediately bowed to the elders and greeted them upon entering, showing immense breeding. Clearly a child raised in a prominent family. Unlike Mora's haughty demeanor, perhaps because of her young age, she appeared even more like spring sunshine, warm and radiant. It was the young lady from the Chung family. Yunyan knew the Chung family. They had risen to prominence along the coast, with several generations engaged in commerce, and their industrial chain was currently expanding. She had met people from the Chung family before at the U residence. She couldn't say she was particularly close with their children, but her impression wasn't bad. Yunyan hadn't met this particular girl before, but her features carried the beauty characteristic of the Chung family. This was the prospective daughter-in-law old Madame Jiang had chosen. Yunyan's mind worked quickly. Old Madame Jiang's ultimate arrangement with the Chung family must have been painstakingly made, likely a decision to further solidify their position in Nanzhou. However, hearing the girl call Jiang Yinyan that way, it seemed they had met before. Yinner is here. Why didn't you take the driver's car, you silly girl? Old Madame Jiang said with a chuckle. Chung Yinner smiled faintly, very gracefully and appropriately. I missed you, so I rushed over in a hurry. Did I disturb everyone? Sweet-tongued. Not at all. We were just talking about you with third son. Old Madame Jiang smiled. The other elders were clearly also very pleased with Chung Yinner, showering her with compliments about her beauty. Chung Yinner smiled as she looked at Jiang Yinyan, and when she spoke again, her voice was sweet and soft. Brother Yin, it's been a long time since we last met. Their last meeting was when Jiang Yinyan had just returned to the Jiang family at the grand banquet held by the Jiangs, to which the Chung family had been invited. Jiang Yinyan's gaze shifted from Chung Yinner's face. Just as he was about to speak, old Madame Jiang interjected again. Yinner, you recognize Yinyan, don't you? Chung Yinner looked at Yunyan, smiling genuinely. Of course, I recognize her. She's from the Yu family, right? I remember one year, my elder sister went with our parents to a gathering at the Yu residence, and she came back raving about Sister Yinyan. I finally get to meet her in person today. In terms of age, you two are the same year, but Yinyan's birth month is a little later than yours, old Madame Jiang said. Chung Yinner asked with a smile, so it seems calling her sister is correct. The seniority is confused then, old Madame Jiang chuckled. Chung Yinner, apparently aware of Yunyan's situation, suddenly recalled and realized, oh, indeed, wouldn't I be taking advantage then? Yunyan distinctly heard that Chung Yinner was positioning herself as Mrs. Jiang. She seemed determined to succeed. Since the other party greeted her with a smile, Yunyan couldn't remain unresponsive. She subtly curved her lips and said, hello, Yinner. Old Madame Jiang looked at Jiang Yinyan. Yinner hasn't been to Beishir in a while. Why don't you take her around? The young girl likes lively places. Chung Yinner was quite pleased. You really do understand me, Grandma. Jiang Ninian's expression was indifferent. I apologize, but there's a lot going on with Zhongshi, so I can't accompany her. Perhaps realizing the moment had passed and further words would be useless, he raised his wrist to glance at his watch. I still have a conference call to attend. Yunyan, come back to the company with me. Up until this point, the initiative had remained in Jiang Yunyan's hands. Everyone in the Jiang family was well aware that Yunyan had been removed from her special assistant position, so his words were clearly just an excuse. She shouldn't follow him, because if she did, her relationship with Jiang Yunyan would be dragged back to square one. Yet, Yunyan couldn't control herself. She instinctively stood up, as if under a spell, unable to resist. Wait, old Madame Jiang suddenly spoke up. Yunyan froze. Third son, don't be in such a hurry to take people away. Jiang Yunyan's brow paused. Soon, more people entered the old Jiang family residence. The butler led the way, and in a blink, they were in the main hall. Yunyan gasped. It was Zhan Chuan and Yuan Zhou. They arrived quietly and unassumingly, but behind them followed attendants carrying carefully prepared gifts. Jiang Yunyan's expression turned utterly cold. Yunyan felt uneasy. She walked up to Yuan Zhou and asked in a very low voice, What are you doing here? And him, the last part even softer. Are you too insane? Clearly, old Madame Jiang was aware of their arrival. After a few pleasantries, the atmosphere appeared very harmonious. Old Madame Jiang then said to Yunyan, It's a good thing that the Yu family has received investment from the Zhan family. I heard Wan Zhou mention your plans. That's good. Young people should go out and strive. What plans? Yunyan asked instinctively. A premonition of ill omens spread through her heart. Yuan Zhou smiled faintly, clarifying his purpose. I've told Grandma Jiang about our intention to move back to Jiangnan. The Yu family is currently in need of manpower, elder sister. So today we're also here to bid farewell to Grandma Jiang and all the Jiang family elders. He then looked at old Madame Jiang. I know you care for my sister. Please rest assured, we will contact you to report our well-being once we've settled down. Yunyan's heart tightened. These words were, in fact, what Yunyan had intended to say herself. By citing the Yu family's need for management and the necessity of leaving Beishur, she would gain old Madame Jiang's approval, which would be equivalent to receiving a death exemption gold tablet, a free pass. However, all her plans had been disrupted by Jiang Yunyan. Although the atmosphere seemed fine, even somewhat harmonious, Yunyan felt a tightness and blockage in her chest, and at the same time, a faint unease began to grow within her. Old Madame Jiang said, Don't just see Yunyan as a girl. Her calm demeanor and decisive way of doing things set her above many other young ladies. Her words had an ulterior meaning. Zhan Chuan stepped forward and stood beside Yunyan, smiling at old Madame Jiang. Old Madame Jiang, you might not know, but Yunyan has a natural talent for business. She excelled even during her student days. Old Madame Jiang chuckled. I've heard as much. How else could she be my Yu girl? Oh, look how well matched these two are. Just standing together is a treat for the eyes. The elders nearby continuously echoed her sentiments. In front of everyone, Zhan Chuan took Yunyan's hand. Yunyan paused slightly, not expecting such a move, and subconsciously wanted to pull away. But before she could withdraw her hand, Zhan Chuan tightened his grip, holding her hand firmly. Startled, she looked up at him. He smiled back at her, his expression calm and unruffled. Then he turned to old Madame Jiang again. Old Madame Jiang, please rest assured, I will take good care of Yunyan. He paused, then added, including Madame Yu. Please don't worry about her either. Yunyan's heart gave a jolt. This Zhan Chuan truly left no stone unturned in his words and actions. Old Madame Jiang was slightly surprised. Madame Yu is also returning to Jiangnan? Yes, Yuan Zhou said softly. Mother's condition is currently very stable. After returning to Jiangnan, a professional medical team will be responsible for her health. Old Madame Jiang nodded repeatedly. That would be for the best. Yunyan, come here. Old Madame Jiang extended a hand to her again. Yunyan walked over and gently held the old lady's hand. The old lady patted the back of her hand. Remember, come back to see Grandma when you're not busy, and if you have any difficulties, remember to tell Grandma. Grandma is your strongest support. Yunyan felt a lump in her throat and nodded slightly. Jiang Xian suddenly asked, Yunyan, why is this so sudden? We haven't heard you mention it. Yunyan wanted to say it was sudden, that even she was arranged, but saying so would undoubtedly render Yu Zhuanzhou's and Zhan Chuan's efforts fruitless. So she forced a small smile. Sister Xen, I was going to leave sooner or later. Jiang Xen subtly glanced at Jiang Yunyan, then sighed, what a pity. Yunyan read a deeper meaning into that statement. Jiang Xian had no intention of ending the conversation. Her gaze suddenly fell on Zhan Chuan's face. I've also heard a bit about Prosecutor Zhan's achievements. They're truly remarkable, and you are so young and promising. I just wonder, with Ninian returning to Jiangnan, what are Prosecutor Zhang's plans? If a young couple is in a long-distance relationship, their feelings might be affected, right? Zhang Chuan replied calmly. A job transfer means I'll be in Jiangnan for a few years. He turned to Yunyan, his gaze gentle.